Hi, I'm Christina and this is a book review of Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker. So this is a horror novel and it was published in 2025. This story is set during the COVID pandemic and it starts in April 2020 and it's set in New York City. Our two main characters that we are first introduced to are Cora Zheng and Delilah Zheng. They are sisters and they are 24 years old and 26 years old. So they are half sisters. They share the same father who is Chinese and he now lives in China and he doesn't really see either of his daughters very much at all. And they have different mothers. Cora's mother is white and Delilah's mother is also Chinese. Now, they both have art history degrees and Cora used to work on reception at a museum, but she doesn't have that job anymore because of COVID. And Delilah used to work at a local fashion magazine, but she's now thinking of moving to China and trying to become a model. So Cora and Delilah are out and about one day and they're travelling home and they're waiting for a train. And then a man approaches them. He's wearing a black hoodie and he's wearing a blue surgical mask. And he pushes Delilah in front of the train and he shouts the words "Bat Eater" at her. And then he disappears and Delilah is killed by the train. And then the rest of the story is watching Cora trying to come to terms with the death of her sister. And of course, she is grieving, but she's also had quite a difficult relationship with her sister at times, quite a turbulent relationship. So there's also anger and resentment on top of love as well. So it's a very difficult grieving process for her. And of course, she doesn't have a job because she lost it before her sister died due to COVID. So she's applying for a new job and she decides to work at a dry cleaning shop in Chinatown in New York. But she doesn't end up cleaning clothes as she expected. The dry cleaning shop has decided to expand into the crime scene cleanup business because it's COVID, and she ends up being a crime scene cleaner. Now we follow Cora as she joins this company, and she has two colleagues that she works with, a man and a woman, and she becomes quite friendly with them, and they're obviously working very closely together in a very difficult kind of job, obviously cleaning up a lot of murder scenes, a lot of different deaths, and it's a very difficult, emotive kind of job, and they spend a lot of time together and they become quite friendly, and it's quite a nice friendship to watch blossom actually in terms of it being a horror novel. And I won't say too much more, but we meet these two people who are quite important in Cora's life, and she doesn't really have many other people in her life anymore. She does have two aunties. She has an auntie on her father's side and an auntie on her mother's side, and they're both quite important in her life. They both also help support her financially and obviously emotionally as well. Overall, I thought this was a really good, solid read. I really had a good time with it and I've given it 3 stars. I found it to be very, very gripping. I kept flipping those pages. I did not want to put this book down. I just wanted to know what is going to happen to Cora next and what is going to happen to her two brand new friends. I think one of my favourite parts of this book is the friendship dynamic between those 3 characters, and I really like meeting them for the very first time when they were strangers and they didn't know each other, and then watching them turn into colleagues, and then watching them turn into friends, and then watching them put their lives on their line for each other. I really loved their friendship dynamic, and they're such interesting characters as well individually. They're very different, they're very unusual and peculiar, and I just thought they worked really well together, and I really like the kind of banter and times they have together. I found it very, very enjoyable watching those friends together. And then in terms of horror, it really does cover a lot of different layers of horror. You have the setting being COVID, so obviously we have a global pandemic and the horror that comes with that. We also have the horror because it is a ghost story, and we also have the horror because she's cleaning up crime scenes. There's a lot of death, there's a lot of blood, a lot of gore, there's serial killers, murders. And we also have the horror of the racism that happened obviously in real life during the COVID pandemic. And I actually think out of all of the things in this that were scary, the thing that hit me the most and the thing that terrified me the most was the racism towards the people in this book, and especially the racism towards Asian people during the COVID pandemic, and obviously in particular the racism towards Chinese Chinese people during the COVID pandemic. And I didn't find the ghost part all that scary, to be honest. I don't particularly read ghost stories, and I don't particularly like ghost stories. It's not something I would generally read or generally pick up. And it was done really, really well in here. I thought the ghost aspect was really, really good, really solid. Probably one of the best ghost stories I've ever read. It's not something I read much of, but the true horror for me is in the racism towards these characters. And it was terrifying and shocking, and obviously so similar to what actually happened during the COVID pandemic. And I found it really, really moving at times too. And I will also say that I really found her author's note at the end to be really moving, and it really added a whole new layer to the story and just so much depth. And I'll just read you the part of it that I found really moving, because I can't say it any better than she said it herself. For me, no needle net ghost can compare to the way the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the world. The way we sacrificed the elderly and disabled on the altar of capitalism, the way trust in the government and the CDC swiftly dissolved, and the way we proved we as a country still haven't learned not to scapegoat an entire race of people in times of fear. I just thought that was really, really powerful. And I think the thing that really shone through in this book is, yes, of course, it's a ghost story. It's set during the Hungry Ghost Festival, and the ghosts are a little bit creepy. I didn't say before, but Cora first notices that something is wrong because food is missing from her fridge. So maybe she had a certain amount of eggs and now there's an egg missing, and she doesn't really know what's going on. And then the next thing she sees, there's bite marks in her table. And yes, of course, the ghost story is great and it is creepy because it's a ghost story, but the way in which she really focuses on the racism that people experienced during the pandemic is terrifying and horrifying. And I think this is really the central heart of this story. So yes, this is a horror novel and it is packed full of blood and guts and gore. And yes, it's a horror novel about serial killers and death and murder, but it's really at its core talking about racism, especially in times of the COVID pandemic. And I thought it really, really shone through, and it really did make me think when I'd finished the book. And it isn't just like a silly little ghost story. This really has a lot of meaning to it and a lot of depth behind it too. And I think that's what set it apart for me from all the other ghost stories. I try to read quite a lot of horror novels, and horror isn't really my genre. It isn't really something I gravitate towards. It isn't something I always really enjoy, to be honest with you, but I do try and read quite a lot of them. I end up picking them up DNFing, not talking about them, because it's not fair to talk about a book when it's not really your own genre and you just didn't enjoy it and it's not your cup of tea. But I've tried to read a few ghost stories and they're really not my bag. They're just not for me. But this was a really, really good one, and I think it's because it had so much else underpinning it that it's not just a ghost story. It does a lot more. It really covers a lot more, and she really does pack a lot into this story. And I've never had a horror novel that really made me think this much, if you see what I'm trying to say. Normally it's just about scaring you, giving you nightmares, keeping you up at night. There's a lot more to it than that, and I really, really thought that was good. I think she did that really, really well. So yes, if you have read this, I would love to know what you thought of it down in the comments below. If you haven't read it yet, but I've convinced you to read it, definitely let me know that too, and come back and let me know what you thought of it once you have read it. So thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video if you've liked it, and please do subscribe if you'd like to see more of me talking about books. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.